Miami Vice now has a confirmed reboot with two modern legends like Michael B. Jordan and Austin Butler starring in the lead roles. But that's not all, and here's everything we know about the upcoming movie. Now, if I'm being honest, Miami Vice definitely has more pressure than most reboots ever will, and that's because its 2006 adaptation did not do as well as people wanted or expected it to. Then again, the original NBC series gave us Crockett, Tubbs, fast cars, and a lot of linen. But more importantly, it changed how TV crime dramas looked and sounded. It made Miami feel like a fever dream dipped in all the things neon that were bought with cocaine money. And then there were awesome designer jackets and the good old moral decay. Then Michael Mann took another swing in 2006 with Colin, Farrell and Jamie Foxx. And the film split people right down the middle before it very slowly found a cult crowd of its own. So when Universal says it's back with Miami Vice 85, they have a real challenge at hand. But how the movie fares comes later. For now, let's explore what news is out there. And we, of course, begin by asking, why is this property still super relevant? In order to understand why the upcoming Miami Vice reboot is turning so many heads and why we are making a video about it in the first place, we must go back to what made the original series electric. Miami Vice premiered on NBC on September 16, 1984, then ran for 5 seasons and followed James Crockett, aka Sonny, and Ricardo Tubbs, aka Rico, as undercover detective. These two badasses did their thing through all of South Florida's criminal underworld, from the drug trade and sex crimes to arms deals and, of course, the General Vice unit misery. And they did it all in very expensive clothes. The pilot's premise was simple but engaging, in that it had these two very different Vice cops who joined forces against a Colombian cocaine dealer, and in the days that followed, this setup became the soul of the series. It was slick, but that doesn't mean it was bereft of danger or melancholy in a city where almost no one was immune to corruption or backstabbing. The show's influence was huge because of how many genres it combined together. I mean, it is not wrong to say that Miami Vice was an MTV cop show instead of a regular cop show. One that rewrote the police procedural rules. But more importantly, Miami Vice used feature-style shooting and location work. Then there was high-quality sound and music, as well as color and cinematic editing in a way TV audiences had hardly experienced before. And as you know, anything that feels like a breath of fresh air, even with average quality, works well with viewers. But Miami Vice wasn't even average, so it was bound to go big. The show's look leaned hard into Miami's Art Deco pastels, neon, heat, music, and cinematic editing, which helped make it feel unlike a normal network cop show. Anthony Yerkovich, the show's creator, tried to pitch Miami to his viewers as a modern-day American Casablanca. That's quite possibly one of the best descriptions for the show. However, Michael Mann's 2006 movie, with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx, made about $164 million worldwide on a reported budget of around $135 million, which is far from a hit, let alone a blockbuster. In fact, the production itself had to deal with literal as well as metaphorical hurricanes, delays, and friction on set. Even Farrell later admitted he felt that the movie sacrificed substance for style. Having said that, over time, the Miami Vice movie found itself a solid cult reputation. What Miami Vice 85 actually is. The new movie now has an official title, and that is Miami Vice 85, and I believe the title itself is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, it can't be more obvious about how the new installment is not gonna be a modern-day version of the OD show with smartphones, grey suits, and maybe some generic cartel and thriller tropes sprinkled around for fun. So yeah, the film is a period piece, one that's rooted in the franchise's original cultural moment. The official description says that the film will explore the glamour and corruption of the mid-80s Miami, and draws inspiration from the pilot episode and first season of the original series. So the movie is going all out searching for the original heat and the original Vice world tension. If all goes well, I'm sure the new movie will be one hell of a revival for the franchise. Of course, there's no full synopsis as such that has been made public. What we do know about it is the basic outline. Since the movie pulls on the pilot in season 1, you can expect an undercover narcotics case around Crockett and Tubbs learning how to work together in a city where all the shines is not gold, and where pretty faces hides ugly soul. If you're wondering what happened in the first season of the show, I got you covered. So Tubbs is a New York cop who comes to Miami to avenge his brother's murder, while Crockett is a battle-weary and exhausted local detective with the boat, the alligator, and some very questionable life choices. So I'm guessing that a lot is gonna be dependent on chemistry, infiltration, revenge, and the ever-blurring line between duty and identity. But since the first official description of the movie mentions the words glamour and corruption, you and I can be sure that the movie will be as much about seduction as it is about bullets. So there would be a lot about the cars and the nightlife, as well as the suits and the waterfront wealth. All that the men and women behind the scenes gotta do is ensure that all this badassery and beauty comes with a sense of dread too. The new Crockett and Tubbs. The headline casting is now official. Michael B. Jordan will play Ricardo Rico Tubbs, and Austin Butler will play James Sonny Crockett. The pairing had circulated for months without official confirmation, but Joseph Kosinski himself had always hinted at how he wanted the pair. Both Austin and Michael are wonderful actors, and while the latter recently won an Oscar for his awesome performance in Sinners, Butler really impressed me as Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen in Dune Part 2. In fact, Kosinski said about Jordan, "Someone I've admired for a long time," and added that if those two ended up leading the film, he would be very lucky. Oh, not just you, Mr. Kosinski. I think even I feel very lucky because of this pair. I mean, it shouldn't take a Batman to understand why. Jordan would bring his much-loved authority and charm, while Butler has the unnervingly calm movie star cool, and this guy can be both charismatic and slightly feral, and sometimes both at once. Yeah, that is actually a pretty good recipe for Tubbs and Crockett. But yeah, these two are the only ones that have been confirmed as of now. Nobody else has been officially announced for Castillo, Gina, Trudy, Switek, Zito, Calderon, or any villain role. Also, Jordan and Butler themselves have been fairly quiet about their casting, so it seems that the studio is calling the shots as of now and trying to remember that little is sometimes more. Or maybe Jordan just followed Denzel Washington's advice on how he should control his public image. Washington's logic, and a very fair one if I may add, is that if they are seeing you for free every other day, why would they pay to see you on a weekend? But I digress. How the movie took shape. The development trail for this film became public in April 2025, when Joseph Kosinski came aboard to direct a new Miami Vice movie for Universal. From the very beginning, the writing side had two names attached, namely Eric Warren Singer, who wrote an earlier draft, and Dan Gilroy, who came in to revise it. Dylan Clark signed on as producer, and later reporting made it clear that Clark and his Dylan Clark Productions banner would produce alongside Kosinski. By September 2025, Universal had slotted the film for an August 6, 2027 release, and described it as a mid-80s return to the pilot-era world of the show. In October 2025, the cast search became more serious and dedicated, which was when Michael B. Jordan entered talks first for Tubbs. Then Austin Butler followed for Crockett a day later. By late April 2026, those deals were official and the movie finally had its title. Around the same period, Kosinski also spoke about why the project was important to him. On Pete Hammond's podcast, he said the show had shaped his desire to become a filmmaker when he was 10 years old, which only means that our guy is a fanboy. And that kinda gives me the reassurance that Miami Vice's next installment is in safe hands. The period setting suggests Kosinski and Universal are not chasing a generic present-day cartel thriller. It is obvious that he's going after bringing back the feeling he had as a kid. And if he can bottle even half of that, Universal may have done something commendable here. The creative team around him is also pretty solid. It has also come to my attention that Universal's Sarah Scott and Christina Hoffergy are overseeing the project for the studio. So, while this is very much a Kosinski-led movie, it is also built on a property with clear authorship that lines back to Yerkovich and Mann. Oh, and Mr. Yerkovich is the man who created the characters of Sonny and Rico for the original show. As of now, Mann is not publicly listed as a producer on the new film, but Kosinski said in December 2025 that he had spoken with Mann and hoped to get Michael involved in some way for sure. The clean reboot and the one bump in the road. Up to this point, the biggest public bump in the road has been the release date shift. When the title and lead casting became official on April 22, 2026, the movie still had an August 6, 2027 date. 2 days later, Universal moved it to May 19, 2028, and gave the earliest slot to an untitled event film, while the next Mummy took the May 2028 date away from Vice. What happens next and when will we actually see it? The current plan, based on trade reporting, is for production to begin later in 2026. The film is built for IMAX, and multiple outlets have said Kosinski intends to use IMAX as part of the movie's visual strategy. He has spent the last few years proving he knows how to turn velocity, machinery, and star faces into big screen spectacles. If he takes that discipline and puts it into speedboats, Ferraris, neon waterfronts, and undercover tension, Miami Vice 85 at least has the right driver in the seat. So, when this video was being made, that's the latest update. I believe whether this reboot lives or dies comes down to a single question. Does it understand that Miami Vice was always about mood as much as plot? So far, I think the signs are better than the cynical people want to admit. The movie went back to 1985, went after two legitimately magnetic stars, hired a director who genuinely reveres the original, and kept the focus on the pilot-era version of the property instead of trying to sand it down into generic streaming crime sludge. The cast beyond the leads is still a mystery, and the 2028 delay is annoying, sure, but the foundation looks strong. If Kosinski nails the chemistry, the music, and the dangerous Miami's seduction that made the show immortal, Miami Vice 85 could end up as far more than another reboot. It could be the first big screen Vice that fully understands why people still care.